BookTube. Welcome to Lizzie Faye Loves Books. I'm Elizabeth, and this is going to be part 2 of the Ultimate Reading Challenge. I have been doing the Ultimate Reading Challenge all year. It is a challenge issued by PopSugar back at the beginning of 2015. I discovered it probably in January, and I thought it looked really neat. I had never done any kind of a challenge like this before. I started this back before I was even booktubing, and of course I only started booktubing in July, so I've been doing this challenge longer than I even knew about booktube. But once I started making booktube videos, I thought, oh, well, this might be something fun that people might enjoy seeing a video about. So I began talking about it a little bit on my channel, and as I read different books each month, I usually tell you if it's to meet a certain challenge. Then back in late August, I did my part 1 wrap-up because I noticed that even though I've been reading these books completely out of order of the way they were listed in the original challenge, I noticed that at about that time I was getting pretty close to having the first 20 of them completely done. So I read a couple more that I was still missing and finished up the first 20. So I've kind of done the same thing with the next 15. There's a total of 50 challenges and a total of 52 books because one is a trilogy. This video will be part 2, and it will be challenges 21 through 35, and let's get started. If you have watched any of my videos recently, you have seen this one. The challenge was to read a book that your mother loves, and I read Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm, the Great Illustrated Classics edition. This edition is by Eliza Gatewood Warren. Of course, the original Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm is by Kate Douglas Wiggin, and I read this book to my daughter Emily. The next prompt was to read a book that scares you. Well, I don't really read scary books, but I did think about this book, The Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis. I remember hearing about this book probably when I was in high school or college, and I knew that it was about demons, and I thought, ew, I don't know if I want to read about demons. Well, it turns out it's really not a scary book, but it did scare me to read it for quite some time, and I avoided it. So I have faced that fear and read this book, and it is a very good book. The next challenge was to read a book that is more than 100 years old, and this actual book is more than 100 years old. It was, it says it was set and electrotyped originally in 1898, and this edition in 1908. So this is the Hiawatha Primer. It is basically a reading book, a reader for elementary school students. And yes, I said Hiawatha. If you didn't watch my November wrap-up where I talked about reading this, I discovered that I have been saying it incorrectly all these years. I always said Hiawatha, but in the back where it shows pronunciations of vocabulary words, the very first word says Hiawatha, and it is pronounced H, then with a, and the I is pronounced with a long E sound. So I stand corrected. The next challenge is to read a book based entirely on its cover. Now, I read this back before I started booktubing. This is a library copy because I have already passed my copy on to my sister. I thought these were adorable. I did not know anything about these books. I'd never heard of them. I'd never read anything by this author. This is A Case of Bad Taste by Lori Copeland, and it is the first out of 3 books in the Morning Shade mystery series. And I have since read all 3 of them and wish there was more. But one day I was at the Friends of the Library. We were having a work day, and a lot of volunteers were there, and we were pricing and going through books pretty quickly. And one of the other ladies handed me this book, and they said, "Here, this looks like something you would like." And I looked at it and I said, "Yeah, it does. I'll take it." And the sequel was also there, and I bought them both. It took me a little while to get around to reading them, but I did read them earlier this year, and I loved them. So I definitely recommend this book. It is a Christian mystery series. Again, there's only 3. I wish there were more. So Lori Copeland, if you ever see this video, please make some more. I went round and round about what to read for this next challenge. The challenge is to read a book you were supposed to read in school but didn't. I can't remember if there was anything I was supposed to read in high school or college that I didn't read. At the same time I was looking for something to read for that challenge was also Banned Book Week. I read Of Mice and Men thinking that I would use it for that challenge because I know a lot of people have to read that for school. But then it was Banned Book Week, and I really kind of wanted that to count as my banned book. And I thought about The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. S.E. Hinton is from Oklahoma, which is where I'm from. And I remember hearing about this book from pretty early on. Pretty sure that students my age had to read this for school, at least at some place. So I decided this would be a good choice to read because I really feel like it's something that I should have read whether I was assigned it or not. And I really, really enjoyed it. I will talk about it more in my November wrap-up. This is one of the first books I read this year because our book club at the public library was reading this for January. The prompt was to read a memoir. This is The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls, and I have to tell you, this is an amazing book. I don't read a lot of memoirs, but I recommend this one completely. What Miss Walls had to go through in her childhood, no one should have to go through in a lifetime, and it's just an incredible story. Unbelievable. And there's sometimes the things that her parents do, if I didn't know they were real, they'd be funny because they're just so outlandishly crazy and off the wall. But yet I think, oh my goodness, this really happened to her. So I definitely recommend this book. It's phenomenal. The next challenge was to read a book you can finish in a day. I used to think finishing a book a day would be difficult, but I think my reading speed has increased some since I've been doing BookTube. I wasn't sure, though, at the time that I would be able to find something that I could read in one day. However, my husband had this checked out from the library. I've talked about Carl Hiaasen before on my channel. He writes a lot of fiction, but this is a nonfiction book that he wrote. It's called Team Rodent: How Disney Devours the World. This was published originally in 1998. Now, Carl Hiaasen is a Floridian, but he's very anti-Disney, and he does not like how Disney has come in and just changed the whole landscape of the Central Florida area. So he gives his side of things in this book, and it's very interesting, and it was a very enjoyable read and a very quick read because, as you can see, it's very short. It is 83 pages long, so very easy to finish in one day. The next challenge was to read a book with antonyms in the title. I read this one for Booktubeathon. This is by Lillian Jackson Braun, called Short and Tall Tales. And these are little vignette type short stories that are related to the Cat Who series. These are not really mysteries, though. The Cat Who series is a mystery series, but James Quillerin, who is the main character other than the cats in the Cat Who series, is a newspaper journalist, a newspaper columnist. And as he would go around interviewing Moose County residents, he would gather little stories. And in the series, he talks about writing some short, tall tales. So here they are. The next challenge is to read a book set somewhere you've always wanted to visit. Now, I read The Postman for Booktubeathon, and at the time I thought I was going to read this for a book set in the future. However, set in like 2010 because it was written in the 1990s, and I thought it would really be better to pick a book set in the actual future from now. So I got to thinking where I could plug this book in, and it's set in Oregon. I have one set of cousins who moved to Oregon several years ago, maybe 20 years ago, and of course they still come and make trips back to Texas to family reunions on occasion. I don't get to see them very often, but I don't really get to see any of my extended family very often. I have always wanted to go there. My mother got to go to Oregon to visit. I think my brother has also gone, but my sister and I have not gotten to go. And I don't know if she wants to go, but I would love to go. I'm going to count The Postman for that prompt because it's set in Oregon. The next challenge is to read a book that was published the year you were born. I was born in 1964. This is the 1965 Newbery winner. So it was published in 1964. It's called Shadow of a Bull. I talked about this, I think, in my June or July wrap-up, and I really enjoyed this book. It is about bullfighting, but it's more than that. My favorite book quote of the year, and probably of all time, came from this book this year, and it's on page 148 of this book. Manolo is the main character, and he has met a star bullfighter, and he's assuming that the star bullfighter will want him to take after his father and become a bullfighter too. But he says, remember, Manolo, in the end, it is all between you and God. That is such a great life lesson for me, for anyone. So don't let anyone else live your life for you. It's just between you and God. All right, this one I just read this past month. This is to meet the challenge of read a book that got bad reviews. This got a 2.65 on Goodreads, and it's called The Almost Moon by Alice Sebold. I talked about it in my November wrap-up. I did not enjoy it because it's about such a disagreeable topic. It's really hard to get past that. So it's not an enjoyable book by any means, at least to me, and pretty much by the majority of the people who have rated it on Goodreads. So, you know, I don't know what to say about it. It's about a lady who kills her mother and then begins to tell you why and kind of to justify it, if you will, and just kind of tell us how messed up she is. So, you know, it's definitely not my type of book. I will try to avoid books like this in the future. I just read it to meet that challenge. I had picked it up because it's such a pretty cover, and it was, you know, it was hanging out left over at our book sale, and, you know, I thought, well, I'll give that a try. I've heard of this author, and I brought it home, and then I saw, oh my goodness, bad reviews. Well, then I saw the challenge. Oh, bad reviews. Okay, this will work. I don't recommend this book. Unless you just want to read something psychological. I mean, I've heard people say they like psychological thrillers. This is not even a thriller. It's just psychological. The next prompt was to read a trilogy. I read the Matched trilogy by Ali Condi. We have Matched, and then Crossed, and Reached. I have heard a variety of reviews about these books. I would say on BookTube, I've heard more negative than positive. However, I loved them. So, you know, a lot of times I am swimming upstream on things, but they are a dystopian book. One of the reviews I read that was negative on Goodreads, someone was talking about how they didn't like it because it was too much like The Giver. Well, I love The Giver, so I didn't mind that it was like The Giver because that's a good story. So, I mean, yeah, you don't want to copy someone else's work, but it was really, you know, it's definitely its own story. It at the very beginning, it kind of looks like The Giver initially, but it definitely moves forward and goes on from there. So I thought these were well done. I enjoyed them. Reached is the third one, and it has 3 different points of view. I really liked how at the top of each page it told you who was talking, so you didn't have to go back if you forgot who was talking, which usually you didn't. But if you forgot who was talking, you didn't have to go back to the beginning of the chapter to see. So that was really great about it. I love the covers on these. I think they're beautiful, and I really enjoyed these. You know, if you have someone in your life who enjoys YA dystopian, I wouldn't skip over these. I thought they were really good. So if you've read these, let me know what you think. Even if you read them and hated them, we can still be friends and disagree. That's quite all right. So I hope you're not upset with me for liking them, but I did. I really enjoyed them. The next prompt was to read a book from your childhood. I also just read this one, actually this month. This is the last one of this group that I have read. I read this because I have had this book since my childhood. I earned this book for saying Bible verses from a traveling preacher and his wife. They gave me this book at the end of the year. They would come through our town like once a month, and I was so proud of myself. I think I won this in 6th grade, so that was 1976, and I never got it read. It has sat on my shelf. I have moved it from home to home, state to state, and I could not ever bear to get rid of it, even though I thought, am I ever going to read it? And I would think, well, yeah, okay, I'll read it. I should read it, because how will I know if it's any good or not if I don't read it? So I finally read it. Yay for me, I read it. I did enjoy it. It's just a short book. It's only 180 pages, so I don't know why it took me 40 years to read it. And I have several books like that, little paperback books. I'm really going to work hard this coming year on reading books that I own that I've been wanting to read. This is going to be my year to get some stuff read off my shelves. So this is by Catherine Cookson. It's called Maddie Doolin, and it's about a teenage boy who is graduating from high school and trying to decide what to do with his life. He knows what his parents want him to do. He knows what he can financially do, and then there's what he really wants to do. So those are the struggles that I guess we all go through at that age. So I thought it was a pretty good book. I gave it a 3-star rating because it's kind of slow. It's not real exciting, but the overall story I think is good. It's just, you know, it's from a different era. It's from the 60s. It wasn't a bad book, and I'm glad I read it. The next prompt is to read a book that had a love triangle in it. I went ahead and plugged in Dream Factory into that challenge by Brad Barkley and Heather Hepler. I didn't read this book specifically for that challenge, but after I read it, I realized I could plug it in there. But I've already talked about this book on my channel. I don't want to go into it anymore. It's just a crazy book, and it hits pretty close to my heart in a bad way. It's just, the setting is just not correct, and it's just, I don't know, it's poorly researched, I think. If you happen to look this up and see what this is about, let me just tell you, this is not how it is in real life. I can tell you. There's so many mistakes in this book. So much of the setting is just wrong, and it's disappointing that it's not portrayed in a better light. Overall, there's a lot of integrity in how this job is done, and a lot of training. This book indicates that really pretty much no training went into these people going into the job that they went into here. That would never happen, not in a million years. So anyway, that's all I want to say about this book. And the 35th prompt in the challenge is to read a book that was set in the future. I read this for Booktubeathon. This is Europa Journal by Jack Castle. Jack Castle is an old friend of mine, and I have a review of this book that I have just done. I don't know if I will be posting it before this video or after this video, but it is going up this month as well, so look for that. I've talked about this right after Booktubeathon, but I didn't have the book to hold in my hand. I first downloaded it as an ebook. Now it is available in paperback. This is a fabulous book. I hope you will look into it. You can download it as an ebook, or you can get the paperback book from Amazon, and it is just excellent. It features time travel, space travel, mythology, religion, survival, aliens, historical fiction. It's just the whole realm of things all rolled up into this one fabulous package. So I definitely recommend this book. So those are the books that I read for part 2 of the Ultimate Reading Challenge by PopSugar. I will have one more wrap up. Part 3 will be the last 15 books in the challenge that I will probably do sometime in early January, because I still have 3 or 4 left to read, and it will probably take me the majority of the month of December to finish those, because I also have a few other things that I'm reading in December as well. Just be looking for that towards the beginning of next year if you want to see the other 15 books that I have read for this challenge. If you are interested in doing a challenge like this for next year, PopSugar has already announced the 2016 Ultimate Reading Challenge, and there are only 40 prompts on that challenge. One of them is a 2-book challenge, so it's a total of 41 books, and it's very doable. So if you're interested in doing kind of a all year long Booktubeathon with different challenges, then definitely you should check it out. I will link it down below so you can take a look at it. Speaking of all year challenges, there is also another challenge for 2016 that I believe I'm going to participate in, and it's a Goodreads group called Around the World in 52 Books. And of course that would be a 52 book challenge, and I haven't looked real closely at both the PopSugar and the Around the World list, but I'm sure that there's going to be some books that would plug in to a challenge on each one. So I'm going to make an attempt to go ahead and do both of those challenges simultaneously and see how that goes. On this year's Ultimate Reading Challenge, I gave myself a few limitations that were not necessarily part of the actual challenge. I did not count any audiobooks. I also did not count any books that I had read before, or any books that I had previously listened to on audio. However, this year there are several books that I have listened to on audio that I do want to actually read. One of those is the Jan Karon series, and also the Lunar Chronicles. I now own those books, and I want to actually read them because I've only listened to them on audio. So I think I'm going to go ahead and suspend that rule for 2016, because I want to be able to read those and still let them count for some of my challenges. So the Around the World in 52 Books group, I will link that down below as well if you're interested in doing a big challenge for next year. I think it will be fun. There is a Goodreads group. I think there's actually more than one group that do the Ultimate Reading Challenge, so be sure you join up with one or more of those groups so that you can get ideas for what other people are reading. Sometimes there are a few prompts that you can get stuck on and not really know which books, what might be a good book to read, and you can get help from other people so that you can get good recommendations for books that might meet those challenges. So I guess that's all I have for this video. I hope you're having a great day. Read a good book, and God bless you.